This is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. Today I have another exciting episode for you. We're here with Don Bennett, DAS. He's been into the fruit-based raw diet for the last 20 years. You can learn more about him at health101.org. We're here for a very important reason today because many of you guys may know, as a vegan or somebody into raw, vegan, plant-based diet, you know, there are a few nutrients that are critical for your health, and we all know what they are, hopefully. Vitamin B12, definitely really important. I recommend everybody to get checked and supplement as required. Vitamin D, I recommend everybody to get enough sun as required, or, you know, get a light box that produces the, you know, so you can produce the vitamin D, or take a supplement. And these are some common things that people are aware of, but there's also some uncommon nutrients that may nip you in the butt. So I'm here to speak with Don today about one of those items that he's been researching thoroughly lately, and basically this is all news to me, so I'm here to learn as much as you guys are, because I want you guys, and so does Don, I want you guys to succeed on your plant-based raw diet. So Don, what's this other nutrient that may be deficient in raw vegan diets and just standard average American diets?
Everybody, actually, it affects everybody to some degree. You should understand that there's two types of nutrients. There's nutrients that are supposed to come from our food provided nutrients, and there's the ones John was just talking about, the non-food provided nutrients like D and B12. We're not supposed to get those from food. Those are supposed to come from either the sun or our own bodies make the B12. So, but I'm talking about now the classification of nutrients that are food provided nutrients. Now we all know, or we all should know, because it's very important to know, that the foods that most of us are eating are coming from an agri-based food supply system. And they grow those foods for yield, and they grow them for shelf life, and for sugar content, and for looks, for a lot of different things, for just about everything except nutritional content. They're not growing that food for nutrients. So you're going to get phosphorus, you're going to get potassium, because they're fertilizing the soils with that. But they're not adding certain things back in, like maybe they're not putting any sodium in. So now you're not getting really savory tomatoes, you're getting crappy tomatoes. But all our cells have a sodium-potassium pump, so now you're getting plenty of potassium but not enough sodium, so these imbalances can occur. But I've been focusing lately on, and I have to do this because I am a one-trick pony, I have to do one nutrient at a time and just really drill down deep into it. I've been trying to find the most problematic nutrients, the ones that really are impacting our health the most. John mentioned the first two that were on my list, D and B12, and that's a biggie. Research has borne that out. Vegans have been shown not to be living up to their health benefit from being vegan because of going off of processed foods. Now they're not getting D, now they're not getting any B12 anymore. So that's why they're not living up to their benefit. But here's one that is very important. It's called iodine. I know some people...
No, iodine, Don. You're saying it wrong.
Well, some people pronounce it iodine, but that's only because somebody combined iodide, that ends in IDE, iodide, with iodine, and they came up with iodine. But there's no such thing as iodine. So it's iodine and iodide, two forms of the same thing, basically. But where iodine comes from is, well, where we're supposed to get it from is our food. And we probably did millions of years ago. Well, we obviously did, because we're still here today, so we did at one time. But then with modern society being what it is, a lot more people living in a certain amount of area, a lot of foods being grown on a small amount of land, not enough iodine was going around. So what was happening in a lot of countries in the world is people were getting this thing called goiter. Your thyroid is here, that's your thyroid gland, and if the thyroid doesn't have enough iodine, it starts to enlarge itself just to try and, you know, work better and bring more iodine in, or be able to hold on to more, increase its storage capacity, so to speak, because it's just not getting enough. So goiter is the name of the condition. So we were getting goiter a lot in the 1920s.
And then what they did, because actually my great-grandmother had a goiter, they started iodizing the salt.
That was the answer. Once they discovered what was causing the goiter, they said, all right, it's iodine. So they started taking the other form of iodine, which is iodide, and they put it in salt, because everyone was using table salt back then. So it was a great transport medium, a great way to get it into people, and that was the end of the epidemic of goiter. But that was in the 1920s, and iodine was a big thing. You know, there was iodine in candy bars, there was iodine in, there was comic book characters named Little Iodine. You know, iodine was a big thing because they had discovered it or realized that it was really what was missing in the diet. So it became one of the fortified nutrients in our diet, along with a lot of other things later that came about. D and B12, obviously, were the other two. But what happened now? So today, we're not getting, a lot of people are dropping their salt. A lot of vegans have dropped table salt. They're not using it anymore. So now...
But Don, a lot of vegans and even raw fooders are taking the Celtic sea salts and the Himalayan salts, right? Those got iodine because they got, what, 70 minerals naturally.
Yeah, but they don't have enough. That's the problem. There is iodine in those salts because they come from the sea, let's say, and not the ones from the mines, but the ones that come from the sea will have some iodine in, but not enough. It may be enough if your iodine levels were already normal. It may be enough to keep them there, but no one has normal iodine levels anymore. They're all low. Not so low that we're all walking around with large thyroids, but the amount of iodine, I should say, that was added to the table salt was just enough to prevent goiter, which is the condition associated with the severest form of an iodine deficiency. But it wasn't enough to stop things like hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism. Here's something that's fascinating. At least it fascinated me. In some medical things, procedures, what they do is they give you radioactive something to take, and they put you in front of the fluoroscope so they can see the tumors and things in your body. Well, one of the things they give you is radioactive iodine. So when they put you in front of the fluoroscope, and I've seen pictures of this, you see where the body just loves the iodine, where it just sucks it right up. And you see the thyroid is the biggest consumer. It just lights right up. Breast tissue is the second biggest consumer. And then tied for 3 and 4th place are all the other glands. There's an area in the brain. There's the eyeballs, the bones. So that shows you what parts of the body really want iodine. Now, deficiencies are not like a light switch on your wall where it's either on or off. There isn't just 2 conditions for a deficiency. Either you're okay, no problem at all, or, ooh, something's very bad. There's a lot of gray areas in between. It's more like a dimmer switch on your wall where you can get 1,000 different levels of light, right, from a dimmer that you turn. That's what deficiencies are. You can put them into insufficiency and deficiency category, and there's certain definitions for that. But believe me, people who are suffering from hypothyroidism, subclinical hypothyroidism, you're too cold in the winter, your fingers and toes are cold, or you have some weight that you can't lose. The last 5 pounds, the last 10 pounds, you just can't seem to lose them. You don't know what it is. That's your metabolism could be lower than it should be. Metabolism is controlled by the thyroid. If the thyroid doesn't have enough iodine, it's not going to operate properly. All glands, all glands need enough iodine. What about the thymus gland? Oh, the thymus gland is really important. You know what the thymus gland makes? T killer cells. You know what they are used for, boys and girls? They're used to fight cancer. Cancer, T killer cells, your body's natural defense mechanism for keeping cancerous cells from becoming cancer as we know it today, is the thymus gland. Thymus gland doesn't have enough iodine, can't produce enough T killer cells, and that's one of the contributing factors to why we have so much cancer today. Not enough defense mechanism of the body, and too much carcinogens. A double whammy. Too much carcinogens, not enough defense mechanism for the body, bing, we got cancer the way we have it today.
So Don, if iodine is so important, like you're telling me, like, should I just go out to like the health food store and buy some iodine or iodide or whatever and just start taking it? Because I know after the Fukushima scare, people were buying iodine and taking it and all this stuff. Like, should I just go do that? Is that even prudent, or will that solve my issues?
Well, if you're living in the area of a nuclear plant and it blows up, yeah, I would just go out there and get some. Just get some and start taking the dosage on the bottle or whatever the government in the area is telling you to do. That's an emergency situation. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about normalizing a nutrient level in your body that's now subclinically low. So B12, you can kind of do that on your own. There's some good articles out there. I've written one myself that allows you to self-assess and self-correct a B12 deficiency. You really, really can't go wrong unless maybe you're not taking enough. That's the only bad thing you can do with B12 is not take enough to correct a severe deficiency. That's pretty much the only way you could go wrong. But you can't take really too much B12. It's very, very difficult, if not impossible. D, if you follow the instructions, you can take the test on your own, self-assess, self-correct. Again, not such a big thing. It can be a do-it-yourself project. Iodine, it's a whole nother smoke. It's a whole other story. There are so many factors that go along with it. You need certain cofactors to consume with the iodine. You need enough B2, B3, manganese, magnesium, selenium. If you don't get enough selenium to cover the amount of iodine that you're taking, your body could create too much hydrogen peroxide, and you can get in a lot of trouble and have to go to the hospital. You don't want that. So this is not a do-it-yourself project when you're talking about iodine. And some people would say, well, I eat some Brazil nuts here and there, so I'm getting selenium. Yes, you are. But is it enough? If you're correcting a low iodine level, you're going to be correcting with what? Abnormally high amounts of iodine that normally would not be in your diet, even eating iodine-rich foods. So now you've got to take proportionally more of the selenium and maybe the magnesium to compensate, to be able to be a cofactor for the amount of iodine that you take. It's very complicated. There's something else called the sodium iodine symporter mechanism in your body, where if that's not working correctly, you could take those iodine supplements and it's not going to do anything for you. It's not going to work. You're just going to be peeing it out. But you think you're helping yourself. So you really, as opposed to B12 and D, you really should be doing iodine through the guidance of a qualified iodine-aware practitioner, an iodine-literate practitioner. If he or she doesn't know how to pronounce iodine, go somewhere else. That's a good test, first of all, if they don't know how to pronounce it. Can you get it from seaweed? Who asked that? That's a good question.
No, Don, I was going to ask, I thought, in a plant-based, raw vegan diet or even vegan diet, you could get everything you need from the foods, man. I've been told that so many times.
Yep, I've heard that too, and it's a lovely notion, and I'd love to believe it, but it just isn't true. Unless you're growing your own food on soil that you know.
Wait, I do.
Okay, and some people do, but do you know if your soil is iodine rich? Have you been?
No, I haven't tested that one.
Well, then again, if you're using any kind of seawater in there, or you're doing diluted seawater, you might have a good shot of keeping your normal iodine levels normal.
Right, because if I was eating it all these years, I'd have normal levels, and I'd have to replace a little bit instead of having to replace a lot if you're really deficient.
And you'd have to be doing it not just since you were a little baby, but your mom would have had to be having proper iodine levels when she was pregnant with you.
Well, they ate salt.
Well,
iodized salt.
Okay, and that's enough to prevent your mom from having goiter, but
right.
maybe not sufficient. By the way, we talked about goiter being that deficiency disease of not enough iodine. There was another one that went along with it. It was called cretinism, where babies were being born with IQs that were just lower than normal. They wouldn't really be able to hold a job very well. And again, they associated that, they found out it was caused by not enough iodine. So when they put enough iodine in people's diets through the iodized salt, cretinism went away and babies had normal IQs again. And then the goiter went away. But the goiter went away, but people still had hypothyroidism of the thyroid. So babies were having normal IQs? No, they were having better IQs than cretinism, but were they having as high an IQ as they can? Research has clearly shown that moms-to-be who take iodine and make sure they're getting enough iodine in their diet, they have super smart babies. Now, are they really super smart, or just, is that the normal?
You're right.
That's the normal smart. So what's been happening over the decades, since people have been using less and less table salt, in general, just in the general population, the IQs of kids being born today are a little bit lower. They're starting to go down, and even goiter is starting to come back. So, I meet some of these young folks today, and it seems
you kind of wonder
that maybe he's bearing this out. But anyway, if moms should get their iodine levels checked before they conceive. It's very important, because here's another thing. You all heard about detox. When you go from a McDonald's-based diet, and at McDonald's, I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying, when you go from a McDonald's-based diet to a fruit-based diet, your body will start detoxing because you freed up lots of nervous system energy and you're not burning it anymore. It's the opposite of a double whammy. It's in your favor now. So you start detoxing. Well, when you start putting in a proper amount of iodine into your body, it starts to push out the similar chemical components of chlorine, bromine, and fluorine that were taking up the parking spaces that iodine was supposed to park in. It's pushing them out. So when it pushes them out, you're going to feel like crap. And that's a detox of detoxing these halogens, these bromides. They're all the same family: iodine, chlorine, bromine, fluorine. Iodide, chloride, fluoride, bromide. So when all these other ones start to go out, because iodine and iodide are the only things we need. The other ones are just toxins. But where do we get them from? Well, we all know where we get chlorine from, and fluoride from, and bromine comes in all kinds of things. It's in our bread products today. Funny, it used to be iodine in the bread products, but they took the iodine out and replaced it with, they took out the white hat and they put in the black hat thing, because bromine is horrible, but now we're eating it. Bromine is in a lot of things. It's in swimming pools and jacuzzis and new cars. If you get a new car in the winter driving around, you're getting bromine exposure like crazy. You're just taking it in. So when you start doing therapeutic amounts of iodine to correct an iodine level that you had tested, like you're going to test your iodine level, and it's like, let's say you find it to be low, you have to use therapeutic amounts to get it to come back up. And unlike B12, it takes a long time. You know how D takes a long time relative to B12? Iodine takes a long time relative to D. It can take a year or more to get that iodine level back up to where it's supposed to be. But it's really good to do that. If you don't want to have fibrocystic breast disease, if you don't want to have hypothyroidism, things going around with your pancreas and diabetes, and they found iodine goes to this one place in the brain which is also associated with Parkinson's. So, there's all these little connections there. There's the cognitive functions with not enough iodine with the kids, kids that have been born that the parents then start putting iodine into food supply in small amounts, appropriate amounts for a little kid. They start doing better and better in school. So there's all these hums that we've discovered over the years. But since iodine is a really good thing for health, might be one of the reasons we don't hear a lot about it today. Or medical doctors saying, some of my clients go to a medical doctor because they've been seeing a medical doctor for their thyroid condition and they're taking thyroid meds. So now they find out about the iodine thyroid connection. So they go to their medical doctor and the medical doctor says, what, iodine? Iodine, first of all, you're pronouncing it wrong. It's pronounced iodine. And second of all, we haven't had any iodine deficiency since the 1920s, so whoever is talking to you is a quack. Well, I don't know. You can't really blame the doctors because they can only know what they're taught, and they're just not taught about the importance of iodine. Yet in the 1920s, pharmacists would make up iodine pills for you. It was all the rage because it was good, and it's still good. It's just we don't hear about it today because now, rather than deal with your thyroid conditions with iodine, it's dealt with what? Meds. With pharmaceutical meds, synthetic or worse, animal-derived hormones, basically for your thyroid. That's not the best way to go. I think, just like we say, if you're going to go in for tests, lab work, don't just do the standard blood test for B12, right? The serum blood test for B12. It's really very inaccurate. You can get a lot of false positives there. It's not good. You do an MMA test. Most doctors don't know about that.
It's a methylmalonic acid test.
Right. It's not even testing for B12. It happens to be testing for something that will be high if you don't have enough B12.
And also homocysteine is a good one to test for.
Homocysteine, if you don't have any animal products in your diet, if you're vegan, homocysteine is another good one. But, you have to pull teeth to get a doctor to do homocysteine or MMA, and they don't like the fact that you know more than they do.
Those are the functional indicators of a B12 acceptability or deficiency.
Right. So the same thing with iodine. So I stress. By the way, the thing with the moms, it's good to have sufficient iodine to make a baby. But if a mom finds out about it after she's pregnant, she's stuck between a rock and a hard place, because if she had been eating a lot of bread products at one point in her life or swimming in swimming pools or something and she has bromine built up in her body, if she starts doing iodine now while she's pregnant, it's good and it's bad. It's good for the baby and it's also very bad for the baby because she has some bromine detox going on. That's bad for the baby. So this is why I advise strongly you don't try and do this as a do-it-yourself project, because there's so many ways you can go wrong or so many things you can misunderstand or misdiagnose. So do it with a qualified iodine-aware practitioner.
So Don, if I want to get tested, how can I get tested? Can I just go and get a iodine blood test or something?
Well, the good thing about what I call the big three problematic nutrients, D, B12, and iodine, is there's at-home tests you can do.
Okay.
So you can do it all at home, with certain exceptions. Like, did you know that in California, you can't do the at-home D test through the mail without a doctor's order? You have to have a doctor's order in California and in Maryland. And for some odd reason, in New York, you can't even do it at all. You have to go into a doctor's office. So there's some certain regulations with D tests. But fortunately, iodine, they haven't caught on to it yet. So anybody can still do iodine. I have clients all over the world doing the iodine test. But there's only 3 labs in the whole world that do the best test for iodine. Wouldn't you know, of course. So yes, you can get tested. I'm not going to tell you the name of the test because I don't want you just going on Google and saying, see where I can get the test done, because people are doing that. They're testing themselves and maybe reading a little pamphlet or a little article on the internet and taking too much iodine or not enough iodine. And both, of course, are bad. So do it through a health practitioner that knows what they're doing. They'll help you get tested. They'll be able to tell you, first of all, here's how to know if you're getting a good practitioner to work with, by the way. Well, actually, there's an article that tells you all about this. It's an article on my website on iodine. So if you just go to the health101.org and look up the article on iodine, and you'll get all this great information about how to get tested, how to find a practitioner to do it, and it's going to help you so much. And by the way, guess who was deficient? When I had myself tested, and I had been eating dulse, I had been eating dried sea vegetables for a long time. Why? I wanted enough iodine in my diet. Didn't help. I was deficient. If this is where you're supposed to be, and this is where you would be dead, I was right in the middle. I was not anywhere near where I was supposed to be. And that's from eating dried sea vegetables for a long period of time. Goodly amounts, too. So they might have been enough to keep me normal if I had come into this whole thing normal, but we don't come into this whole thing normal. And even when I used to use salt, from the salt shaker, that wasn't getting me to normal. That was just preventing the most severest deficiencies, conditions. So this is very important to get these. Now, is that the only nutrient? Is it the big three? Those are the big three, the most problematic, the ones where we're probably missing the most of, and the ones with the most benefit to have. That's why it's a great thing to focus on these three. Are the ones tied for fourth place? Oh, sure, probably sodium, probably zinc, magnesium. So this is one of the reasons. Boron. There's a whole bunch of them. Sulfur. Just
silica.
Have some durian. You'll take care of your sulfur needs. But this underscores the importance of growing your own greens, even not to eat like tons of them, but the little ones that you might be able to grow in a vertical thing that you have in your apartment might be enough to get those micro or the rare earth elements and the little amounts of things, because you only need those things in little amounts. So you can get them if you put in get one bag of rock dust and get it in there. You might get these little things. So those are the other ones to focus on in that way. But the big three, the ones that have the biggest impact on you, get them checked out. D, B12, iodine. Try and do at least the iodine, certainly the iodine, with a qualified iodine-aware practitioner.
Yeah, Don just made me aware of this situation, and I'm going to immediately get my iodine checked and see where I'm at, because that's the only way to know if you're deficient or not. I know the test may cost $100 or so, and you are worth it. You need to put your money where your mouth is and just figure out where you're at, because if you don't know, you won't be able to fix a problem. And if you're sufficient, that's great, and if you're not, it might be good to correct it, so you can have the optimal level of health.
Well, I should add that of all the clients that I've had tested for iodine, only 100% of them were deficient.
So it's definitely good probably to get checked. So after listening to Don talk about the iodine in this video, and actually I talked to him probably a couple hours before this about this exact subject, I'm committed to getting tested myself to ensure that my iodine levels are proper, because without proper iodine levels, much like improper vitamin D or improper vitamin B12, your body is just not going to be as healthy as possible. Plus, one day, make sure my future wife or future girlfriend has proper iodine, so I could have one of those smart kids instead of one of the dumb ones. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and be sure I'll put a link down below the video for that article that Don talked about, so that you guys could learn more about it. Be sure you have some time on your hands, because it's a nice, lengthy, fairly easy to read article that'll share more with you about this very important topic that we share with you guys today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode, and I want to always encourage you guys to eat nutrient-dense fruits and vegetables. If you don't know how to do that, please visit my other channel, growingyourgreens.com, where I'll share with you guys how to grow the highest quality nutrient-dense foods using things like rock dust, minerals, and sea minerals, which add from 70 to 90 minerals when conventional standard agriculture, and yes, even organic agriculture, maybe adding only 3 to 15 at the most. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Once again, my name is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. We'll see you next time, and remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're always the best. All right, this is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. Today I have another exciting episode for you, and this video is going to be the 5 ways to get your team to eat more raw